if you're on the trusted country list, this is something that will be very, very, very important in a time of relative geopolitical instability. Successful today in a nearshore or offshore delivery is to dare to focus and really stand out as experts at something. Very often, I see a big success factor is to actually try to build a face-to-face relationship.
Welcome to Beyond Delivery by Holisticon Connect, where tech meets true business value. Hello and welcome everybody to the Beyond Delivery Holisticon Connect podcast. Today with me is Staffan Strand, the chairman of the board for Holisticon Connect and other business areas at Nexer, overseeing the international markets. Hello, Staffan. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Sebastian. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And for our listeners, today we'd like to talk about the Swedish or Scandinavian perspective on nearshoring, the challenges and the benefits of such cooperations. So Staffan, with his big and long experience in working with Holisticon Connect, but also other areas, can share a little bit of his perspective on that. Yeah, so again, thanks for joining. And shall we fire off with the first question?
Absolutely. Let's go for it.
Okay, fantastic. So, Staffan, with your role heading up several business areas at Nexer Group, being the chairman of the board of Holisticon Connect in Poland, and your experience across the Nordic and international markets, how would you describe the Scandinavian approach to outsourcing/nearshore partnerships, and what are the top expectations from the Swedish clients today?
So at the macro level, the consulting and services market in Scandinavia today is in a state of slow rebound. It's been a couple of very, very rough years within consulting. Cost is a strong focus. Several clients are engaged in vendor consolidation to get more responsibility out of fewer partners. But at the same time, many have immense challenges of digitalization ahead and are well aware of this. And the market is quite mature when it comes to outsourcing and nearshoring. And even in this downturn, that has continued to be top of mind of many companies. So it's tough times. We're on the way towards something better, but still many opportunities ahead.
Yes, hopefully. And you mentioned that it's been a rough couple of years. I think it's not only Sweden. I think it's something that companies globally experience, and hopefully it's soon to be finished. Right. So looking at the Scandinavian clients again, where do they draw the line between cost efficiency and value delivery? How much importance is placed on innovation, craftsmanship, or domain knowledge, as opposed to just cheaper development capacity, in your opinion?
Given the market situation, cost efficiency is definitely critical. But at the same time, it's important to realize there is little willingness among the companies to compromise on quality. We see a lot of companies investing big in developing new capabilities through technology, and their innovation that is aligned with that business transformation is absolutely critical in attaining the desired objectives. So it's pretty much down to the basics. Quality is important. Transparency will always be important in the Scandinavian culture, and long-term partnerships are needed to get the real business effect and the business transformation that the clients are looking for.
And how does Nexer ensure that its delivery models reflect those values, especially when working across borders?
So there has been a lot of shifts. When the offshoring and nearshoring started some 20 years ago, there was a lot of focus on labor arbitrage, essentially being able to get the same competence at a lower cost. This still holds true for rudimentary tasks within IT support and maintenance, but I think in today's market, for many roles, it has changed to much more of a value-oriented approach, where it's more about reaching the the right critical mass at the right price point and achieve the right results independent on the physical location of the resource. And this is great news for Nexer. It aligns very well with our strategy of delivering very specialized and high competence services. And thanks to the mindset of entrepreneurships, we're also quite good at adapting to these changes, which means that in order for us to stay relevant, we have to change. And here our entrepreneurship helps us change, even though the changes in the client landscape has been quite dramatic over the past years.
That's a valid point. And from my reading and the things I could find online, and obviously experience with working with Sweden, transparency and honesty are some of the core values that the clients value. And I was wondering if you could maybe share some examples of the times when those two values made the difference to the relationships with the clients.
So transparency is something that is very, very important when you do business in Scandinavia. It's very much a core value. It's a very upfront culture, and there is an expectation, especially when you're working with upper management in clients, that a partner does not oversell their capabilities. The expectation is honesty there. Despite this, of course, projects don't always go the way as planned, and they do derail for various reasons. But here it's important. Very often in Scandinavia, the way to approach this is to escalate the matter, and then often you sit on the same side of the table together with the client looking at the problem, and you formulate a common approach to resolution rather than finger pointing, just trying to find a scapegoat. It's not about why or who has done wrong. It's about finding the solution. So this is quite a nice way of how transparency escalates into resolution when you have issues. And actually, I had one of these situations a few weeks ago. We had a project at a client that, for various reasons, and again, no finger pointing, the project was not going as well as both parties had hoped for. So I sat down with the client CEO. We formulated an action plan. And of course, both of us were not directly in the project. We didn't know all the details. We just know what we wanted to achieve. And we formulated an action plan to how to accelerate progress in this. So given that we didn't know all the details, we could look more at the objectives, we could look at the partnership, we could look at the collaboration, and hence come up with a fairly pragmatic approach on how to resolve it. And now we have set that plan into action. And these kind of situations, that's made possible by the culture of transparency and honesty. And in the end, oftentimes the relationship between client and supplier is forged even stronger once you come to solutions. And of course, this doesn't mean that we're free from issues. I mean, sometimes you come to the end of the road and there is friction, but transparency, both in not overselling, but also in how a common approach is shared to achieve resolution of difficult situations. I think that is something that is absolutely pivotal if you want to work long-term in Sweden and build the client relationships. It's important to understand that this is the way that we are working as Swedes and Swedish companies.
I love that. And I really like the approach of sort of like separating people from the issue in a way and looking into solutions. Because, let's be honest, collaborations and projects, it's not always rainbows. There's challenges, there's issues, and it's about how you resolve them, and not just pretending that it's not there and have a big smile and pretend everything is okay. So thanks for that perspective. It's a good point. Coming back to the nearshoring aspect, from your perspective, like how did Central Europe evolve in terms of maturity, moving from staffing hands-on coding to full product ownership, data, and AI engagements?
As I alluded to earlier, there has been a radical shift in the perception of nearshore services from CEE, Central Eastern Europe, over the past 10 years. Again, it started out very often as a low-cost alternative to local delivery, a lot of business process outsourcing where there was a big front office in the country, a lot of service management, and then there was an out-tasking of certain parts of the service to a low-cost country. However, today it's shifting away from this. It's much more of a full service offering. Cost is not necessarily the differentiator. And what we see is this also means that the responsibility for delivering the outcome or delivering the project is shifting to the nearshore location
Vendor.
much larger extent. And of course, once you have team and project-based delivery with accountability somewhere else, this also elevates the need for project management and supporting roles in the team. So it means shifting away from just resourcing into actually skills to deliver an outcome or a project supporting that outcome.
You mentioned some of the benefits of outsourcing. Is there anything else you would like to add to, for other Swedish businesses or Scandinavian businesses looking to scale in Central Europe? Do you see any other value elements that you would like to mention?
Well, I think one such would be the access to competence at scale. Because if I look at Poland today, I'm very well knowledge in the Swedish market, but I have fairly good grasp of Poland as well. Poland has the largest tech talent pool in Central Eastern Europe. There is about 850,000 professionals within IT and tech. And the pipeline for the coming years is also very strong because the universities are graduating high-profile candidates to work in this field at a high rate. Compare and contrast that to Sweden with 200,000 people today working in IT and tech. But Sweden has a need for 18,000 more within these sectors every year. And that's a number that the universities will not get close to graduating. So Sweden is a very mature country digitally. We're focusing a lot on digitalizing manual processes to reduce our labor cost. And at the same time, we're dealing with, so it's both emergence. I mean, we have digitally native companies, but there's also a big legacy because tech and IT has been around for a long time. So there's quite a bit of work in refreshing that estate. So I see the demand being strong, and particular areas of demand that I see moving ahead. AI and machine learning, obviously, like everywhere else. Cybersecurity and risk management ties in very, very close to that. Software engineering, of course, both to refresh the legacy, but also build the next generation digital solutions and products, as well as system integration capabilities. So there is going to be a lot of demand. I mean, yes, automation will help. Yes, AI will make us more efficient, but I don't see over time that the demand is going to shift to something less. It's quite actually the opposite when we see digital becoming even more important in many industries.
Yeah, it's going to take a while before full project delivery can be outsourced to AI. So it's still some years ahead, I think. But it's interesting to see how everyone expected to immediately replace all the developers' jobs, but it's not there yet. Okay, so I was wondering, how does Nexer work to align the nearshore offering so that the Swedish businesses feel that their core strategic, cultural, and design-centric values are preserved, even when part of the work is done outside of Sweden?
So, of course, in Sweden, like everywhere else in the world, during and immediately following the COVID-19 pandemic, the location dependence reduced drastically, more or less overnight, as everyone had to work remotely. Even though it was local resources, it was still remote work in relationship to the office. In the past couple of years, many organizations have been pushing hard to return to work. We don't have the same transparency, but at the same time, I think the pandemic taught us that, it works quite well. Some of the things that we took for granted that had to be done in office, they work just fine doing somewhere else. But at the same time, cultural proximity remains a critical element. And I think building that connection as a nearshore or offshore provider, building that connection to the client and really understanding the culture is very important. And I think a core element to ensure that even if you're working from somewhere far away, that you get the proximity is that you have the regular stand-up, that you have interactive collaboration across the teams. And I think also very often I see a big success factor is to actually try to build a face-to-face relationship. I mean, yes, we're very well used today to working digitally and doing a lot of things remotely, but that human touch is still important, and trying to meet in the beginning of the project. If it is something important and complex and difficult, make sure that you actually gather the teams to kick it off. Once you have that, it's so much easier to reach out. It's so much easier to deal with difficulties that may arise at a later point in time. Just building that relationship, and most importantly, building the trust among individuals within the team or within the project.
So on that note, do you see like talent or language or time zones or cultural differences still pose a friction to those projects?
Yes, when it's not managed correctly, absolutely. I think language becomes less and less of a challenge for every year. I mean,
Everyone speaks English.
while local cultures are important, I think everyone is used to interacting in English today in a whole different way than 10, 15 years ago. And of course, most new graduates entering the market, no matter of location, will do so with a strong set of English skills. Culture, it's always important to embrace and understand the person on the other side. What are their values? What are their foundations? But this is why it also helps so much to spend some time talking non-project stuff with the people to get to know them. Because of course you may have a common language in English, you may have a common language in the technology or problem you're trying to solve, but you may have a very, very different set of values governing in how you react to various things you are faced with by another person. I think this is important to both be cognizant of, but at the same time, try to bridge by actually both doing the research, but also meeting and just building that relationship and the trust.
Thank you for that perspective. We don't have a lot of time left, but I have like 2 questions that I'd like to ask, and one of them being like the misconceptions and maybe some risks that are related to nearshoring, and maybe on that you could say a few words like how you can potentially mitigate the risks when outsourcing work to the nearshore partners.
Yeah, I mean the maturity to manage remote teams have improved drastically over the last 10 years. However, oftentimes when the deliveries that involve nearshore and offshore fail, it's often a matter of underestimating the amount of communication and coordination that is needed. Again, another aspect that sometimes increase costs and complexity is the initial setup of tooling, infrastructure, and onboarding. And we see this more and more today, that companies in the exposed online landscape of today are becoming more scrutinizing on how they allow access to their environment. So this is something that is also very important to plan properly when it comes to networking, when it comes to workplace infrastructure, when it comes to security and access from remote locations, so that is thought through properly so that it doesn't become a limiting factor or something that introduces delays in the projects.
Yeah, that is interesting because, like I said, it's not always so colorful. There is some risks involved, of course, and companies need to be realistic. So maybe just to slightly build on that question, any advice that you could share for vendors and clients looking to grow internationally?
I think for me, the most important aspect of being successful today in a nearshore or offshore delivery is to dare to focus and really stand out as experts at something. Because only playing at cost is a long-term losing value proposition, simply because over time, markets will level out. We already see that in the expert space, that your physical location doesn't matter at all. It's exactly the same cost no matter where you deliver from. And that's going to continue to propagate down to less complex roles. So here to really build a center of excellence type approach. If you don't have a center of excellence type approach, it's hard to stand out in a market where there's so many competitors. And if you don't have that, you're going to end up being a generalist and have cost pressure. The only way really to be a generalist is if you have a very, very large mothership, so to say, that generates the services for you that they're being sent your way. But today, here, I think it helps a lot if you build your own go-to-market story and support that selling from the country. Here, again, back to what I mentioned earlier regarding transparency, under-promising and over-delivering is usually a great way to accelerate your position. It may mean that it's a bit difficult to get the first deal. But once you're then successful, your quality versus the expectation is going to be your best friend at generating growth. And also try to find the right size of clients. If you work in a nearshore setting around a center of excellence approach, you want to avoid perhaps competing with those competitors that have, so to say, real globally delivery models. And at the same time, if you go too small, you're going to get into clients where you can't scale. So finding that sweet spot, if you are a provider that has a true global delivery model, go for the enterprise accounts, but make sure that the accounts that you go into are ones that you can scale.
Right, that's golden advice, I think. And the beginnings are obviously always difficult. Okay, so I would like to ask a final question, and it's more of outlook for the future. And as you look forward, let's say 3 to 5 years, how do you see nearshore outsourcing landscape evolving in Sweden/Central Europe, and what new capabilities, specializations will clients expect? For example, AI, sustainability, domain-specific expertise. How do you see that?
It's a good wrap-up question. I expect a few things. One is obviously a continued increase of specialization. I've been hinting to this earlier. I believe that there are a lot of services opportunities within AI, cyber, and data. These are the hot fields right now. Furthermore, I expect Swedish clients to have more risk-averse behaviors. Unfortunately, we have a complex political environment in the world at the moment. So this is something that is an opportunity for Central Eastern Europe to, if you're on the trusted country list, this is something that will be very, very, very important in a time of relative geopolitical instability. I again expect less and less commodity services being outsourced to nearshoring, simply because of the commodity services either go into the real low-cost offshoring. Today, you see some of that frontier in parts of Asia as well as parts of Africa. But I do also expect that the real commodity services, and we have seen that trend, AI and automation is going to eat up a lot of that repetitive work. Furthermore, another thing to take into account, we're going to see a strengthening of the local markets in the nearshore countries. I mean, the opportunity for a Central Eastern Europe services provider, 20 years ago, you had a hugely lucrative market because of cost versus price going to other countries. This gap is going to lessen dramatically and already has lessened dramatically. So here we will see a leveling out of the price point for the same quality of services. So some of the commodity services might as well go local, whereas the higher end services, they will really compete globally independent of location. And there it amounts to your expertise. There may not be, if you want to scale that expertise, your local market may not be big enough, so you actually have to go nearshore and offshore. So there's quite a lot that I see ahead, but there's also exciting opportunities to capture for those who dare to stand out of being really good at something and who dare to stand out at building the go-to-market approach to capture that opportunity.
I love that approach. Dare to stand out. That's something I will say for as an inspiration for today and for the future. Staffan, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insights and your perspective. Yeah, thanks again and hope to see you soon.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sebastian.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. What's one thing from the episode that made you think? Let us know in the comments and subscribe to the show. It really helps more people discover it. See you next time.